Hey guys, Shane here. So welcome to my conversion build using StahlhelmModels T1E3 Mine Roller set. So this is a lovely resin set for M4 Shermans. In this case we're going to be doing an M4A1 with the mine roller assembly. So the StahlhelmModels comes in this lovely and quite sturdy little box, and all the parts are individually bagged and bubble wrapped, so the packaging is very good. And the cast quality is lovely. I was very impressed by them because this is a small little company and the quality of their casting is fantastic. No real imperfections, just a few little mold lines that we have to remove here and there, which is nothing really to get too excited about, especially of us who've dealt with resin conversions in the past. So this is actually a fantastic little set to start off for anyone who's not used to working with resin. And the first step when dealing with any resin models, whether it be figures or conversions in this case, we're going to have to give the resin parts a bath. And for this, we're just going to take some warm soapy water and then just taking an old soft bristle brush here, in this case an old toothbrush, I'm just going to give them a quick scrub. And you can see I have a second basin and that's just clean water, and I'm just going to give them a rinse through that, and that's just going to remove any of the release agent or grease from the molds. So here are the basic tools that we're going to be using, and I'm going to take you through each tool as we come to use it. The most important things to have really are files, a nice fresh and sharp hobby blade, and some fresh super glue. So if you're using old super glue, there's a chance it might frost, so I would recommend going down to the hobby shop or pound shop or discount store and just buying those small disposable super glues, and that will kind of help prevent any of that frosting. So we're going to start now firstly by removing the roller discs from their casting blocks, and for that I'm just going to put a fresh number 11 Swan & Norton blade on my hobby knife here, and I'm just going to start scoring along the casting block here. I'm not trying to cut through it in one go, so I'm just going to slowly work my way through it until I can whittle it free. Now you can see there's a little bit of burring, so I'm just going to remove that very gently with a hobby blade, just applying very gentle pressure. And then once I'm happy with it, I'm going to come in with a sanding sponge and very gently just going to start sanding down that burr. This is quite soft resin, so be kind of careful. It's very easy to misshape this, so just take your time. So we have a few mold seams inside these slots here. I'm just taking the back of my hobby blade, should I say. I'm just going to scribe along that and remove any of that burring. Again, be very careful with this resin dust. I should mention it now, as there is a health warning with this type of material. You know, it is carcinogenic, so if you're going to be sanding and putting a lot of dust in the air, do wear a mask. I'm using a scribing method here, so I'm not getting a lot of dust, but I am being quite careful not to kick any of this up into the air. So after some time, I have cleaned up all of our 10 roller discs here, and we're ready now to move on to the next step. So we're taking my Asuka M4A1 here, and as you can see, I've actually not glued the upper hull in place, and there's a reason for that, so I can just unassemble this model as I need to get space. And now we're just going to mount the large one-piece resin mounting bracket. So this is meant to sit at about maybe, I think it's about a 35 or 40 degree angle, so it's meant to be kind of tilted upwards. The way it's molded, it'll only sit a certain way. So now we're moving on to the actual booms or the swing arms for the roller assemblies. So we do have some mold seams that need to be removed, and again we're just going back to using the back of our blade here, and I'm just going to apply again gentle pressure and just scribe those down. I don't want to gouge the resin, should I say, so I'm just going to apply gentle pressure and just slowly work this down. So now we start assembling the boom arms to the swing arms, if you like, or whatever type of assembly this is. And I'm just going to use just some cheap CA glue here. And just making sure everything lines up first. So do a few dry fits before you glue anything in place. And I'm just going to clamp them down. But you can see that there's a little gap between the swing arm and this suspension boom or whatever it is. And we want to keep that gap in place. So do not fill that in. That is meant to be there. And it's also highlighted in the online instructions provided on the StahlhelmModels website too. So I will have links to all this so you can find it. We have our main assemblies now just glued together. And I just hit them with a little bit of super glue activator just to create an instant bond. So this is probably one of the most helpful tools for working with resin. So this is known as a micro saw. So basically a photo etch razor saw basically. And this one's from CMK. They come in different thicknesses. And again, just a little bit clean up here. I make a little mistake when doing this. I kind of create a bit of a step that I'm going to have to come back and shim later. You can kind of see there I didn't sand things correctly, so maybe not using a sanding sponge would be the right call here. And again, just going back to our liquid CA glue, I'm just going to mount these up, just taking a couple of seconds to ensure that I get a good alignment. And then once I'm happy, I'm just going to take a little bit of super glue activator and just to get an instant bond. So I made a bit of a mistake when I was cleaning these parts up and I created a bit of a step. So this is more my fault, but I'm just going to take some plastic card here and create some shims to help hide that kind of egregious gap, because I can't stand a straight line to save my life, it would appear. So now we're going to start mounting the end caps to the mounting brackets, but one thing just to draw your attention to first, you'll see these locator holes, and they're for lifting rings, so you want to ensure that those locator tabs are facing up. And I'm just going to use a trick that I learned from Scott from Small Soldier on his fantastic YouTube channel. And that is, I just use an old tea light to put my super glue onto, and actually whatever way the wax interacts with CA glue, it won't set for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. Now, so I do have a few little air bubbles or whatever they are here just on these flat plates. You can barely see them, and to be honest with you, you probably won't even see them once they're in place. And I'm just going to take a little dab of CA glue onto each of those tiny little dots, and that's just going to fill that in. Once I place them, I'm just going to hit them with some activator and they're going to set almost immediately. So now we're going to move on to the sprockets. So the sprockets have to take a new adapter to fit the drive chains for our mine roller. We're going to start by just taking the Asuka Kit's sprocket here, and I'm just going to start cutting away the mounting bolts to accommodate this new mounting bracket for the sprocket. So now returning to our roller disc, I'm just going to glue on the end caps. So on the far disc on each side of each boom, there's this end cap. So this is facing outward or out towards the viewer, and it's on either side of each disc assembly. So you're going to have your 5 discs. So disc number 1 and number 5 on each side will have these end caps on the outboard, so facing out towards the viewer, if you like. So now we're going to mount the mounting bracket on the kit drive sprockets for these drive chains. So what I found the easiest way to do this to ensure correct alignment is to actually just do a mock-up. So I'm not going to glue anything into place here, and just doing a basic mock-up here. I'm going to mount the drive chains, and before I actually glue the adapter plates to the top of the kit sprockets, I'm just going to link everything together by just friction, and then just glue everything in place that way. And then what I'll do is I'll actually just mark the left and right sprockets so I know which ones are which. Now moving on to the bump plate. So this is the large plate that sits on the back of the vehicle. What it's actually designed to do is it's meant to allow another tank to come up and push the Sherman with the mine roller should it get stuck. So it's a bump plate. Now this is a little bit more involved, so we're going to do a little bit more dry fitting and hand fitting. But the first thing is first that we have to drill some holes to ensure that the mounting brackets fit onto the toe eyelets. So just taking a drill bit that is the correct diameter. Now you have no markers here, so you have to be a little bit careful to ensure that you do this square or don't blow out the end of this mounting bracket. So again, take your time and just apply gentle pressure. And then once I've done the guide hole by hand, I'll just come in then with my pin vise and drill out those holes. This is probably the only kind of real tricky part of this, that you have to be a little bit conscious of making sure everything's lined up correctly and that you drill the holes as accurately as possible. And I don't do that because I can't line things up to save my life. So my guide holes are a little bit swayed or skewed, but it won't matter. Once we have this in place, you won't even notice. So that's just another thing to bear in mind. So we're going to do a lot of dry fitting here to ensure we get a correct alignment. So we're going to firstly start by assembling the different brackets on our bump plate here. And now you have these large mounting brackets that actually bolt or weld onto the back of the engine deck. So what I'm going to do is by just allowing everything to be loose, I'm just going to do a very partial assembly. And my reason for doing this is it's going to act as a jig to allow me to ensure that I have a correct alignment. So first things first, I'm just going to take some 0.5mm brass wire and feed it through the toe eyes here. And that's just going to be a temporary fix. I actually have some resin pins that are more accurate that will be placed in to mount this properly to the kit, and they're from Tiger Model Design. Then I'm going to refit our upper hull here. And as you can see here, I have our mounting plates. And by doing this test fit, I see I have to remove the mounting point for the idler spanner. So I'm just going to, or the tensioner. So I'm just going to cut that away. And then I'm just going to take 2 dollops of liquid CA here. Then I'm going to mount everything in place. So that's the advantage of having everything loose and workable, that I can actually hand fit and ensure I get the alignment that I want. This is meant to kind of sit at a slightly upward angle, with the bump plate kind of again sitting at about maybe a 25 or 30 degree angle up. So a quick blast of activator and those mounting brackets are fully set, and we can move on to the next step of fitting the bump plate. So next step are these 2 mounting brackets, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave them loose on the top bracket here, as you can see. And I'm going to glue them in place on the lower aspect. And the reason for that is that's going to give me a constant and repeatable alignment every time. So I can remove those pins in the end and pop off the top of the bracket and remove that separately for painting. And because those bracket arms are glued in place, I'll always get the same alignment once I realign everything again for the final assembly. And again, once I'm happy with that, a quick blast of CA activator, and that is good to go and 100% set. So now I'm going to add some grab handles and towing or lifting eyes, and for that we're going to use some 0.4mm brass wire. Now I was going to film this step, but I found that I could not get the camera to focus, and it took me a very long time to get the diameter correct, because again, just like alignments, I can't seem to bend a simple half circle to save my life. But here we go. After using my my paintbrush, I created the bend for this, and these are the lifting eyes for the mounting bracket for the booms. Again, I referred to some actual photographs of the actual vehicle online, as well as Stephen Saloga's modelling the M4 Sherman, because he has a 48 scale version of this. I also added, now this is a bit speculative on my part, but I added a weld seam across the mounting boom on the upper hull. I have no idea how these things were fitted. I suspect they had to be welded. And I also added some weld seams to the top of those mounting brackets as well. So there you have it, guys. That's my first resin update I've done on the channel. And guys, I have to admit, the StahlhelmModel conversion is absolutely fantastic. And this is not a paid promotion. I bought this myself as well, just thought I'd notice, or I'd tell you. They're a small little company, and they do some really interesting what-ifs and conversion sets. And for any of my Sherman fans out there, I would really recommend trying out their E1 or their T1E3 mine roller set. It's a very unique looking Sherman, and I'm really looking forward to painting and weathering this one up in the future. So guys, thank you so much. I hope this was interesting and gave you some ideas and maybe some points on working with some very simple resin conversions. So I'll catch you in the next video, guys. I've been Shane. Stay safe out there, and bye bye.